Hi, I'm Gail. Thank you for joining me on the Secular Scriptures. This is Genesis chapter 18, verse 16 through chapter 19, the story of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, from the World English Bible, a free public domain translation, without which this study would not be possible. If you just came for the reading and you need to flee before the discussion, don't look back. Just go on to the next video. If you'd like to stay for some history, literary analysis, comparative mythology, and conflicts, contradictions, and controversies, you are most welcome. We also have a kitty joining us today. This is a secular Bible study, so please refrain from the intent to use apologetics, nor should you threaten anyone with proselytizing. I am not a biblical scholar. I just love these stories. Friendly discourse in the comments is welcome. Being inhospitable is not. And keep it on topic. Bandit, why don't you come over here? There we go. That'll work. Now, my lords, please make yourselves comfortable. Pour out some of your favorite beverage, and let's see if there are any righteous characters in this tale of wickedness and destruction. This is Genesis chapter 18, verse 16 through chapter 19. This is the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, hellfire and brimstone. The men rose up from there and looked toward Sodom. Abram went with them to see them on their way. Yahweh said, "Will I hide from Abraham what I do, since Abraham will surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed in him? For I have known him to the end that he may command his children and his household after him, that they may keep the way of Yahweh, to do righteousness and justice, to the end that Yahweh may bring on Abraham that which he has spoken of him." Yahweh said, "Because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether their deeds are as bad as the reports which have come to me. If not, I will know." The men turned from there and went toward Sodom, but Abraham stood yet before Yahweh. Abraham came near and said, "Will you consume the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous within the city? Will you consume and not spare the place for the 50 righteous who are in it? May it be far from you to do things like that, to kill the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous should be like the wicked. May that be far from you. Shouldn't the judge of all the earth do right?" Yahweh said, "If I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare the whole place for their sake." Abraham answered, "See now, I have taken it on myself to speak to the Lord, although I am dust and ashes. What if there will lack 5 of the 50 righteous? Will you destroy all the city for lack of 5? He said, "I will not destroy it if I find 45 there." He spoke to him yet again and said, "What if there are 40 found there?" He said, I will not do it for the 40's sake." He said, "Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. What if there are 30 found there?" He said, "I will not do it if I find 30 there." He said, "See now, I have taken it on myself to speak to the Lord. What if there are found 20 there?" He said, "I will not destroy it for the 20's sake." He said, "Oh, don't let the Lord be angry, and I will speak just once more. What if there are 10 found there?" He said, "I will not destroy it for the 10's sake." Yahweh went on his way as soon as he had finished communicating with Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. Chapter 19. The 2 angels came to Sodom at evening. Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. Lot saw them and rose up to meet them. He bowed himself with his face to the earth. And he said, "See now, my lords, please come into your servant's house. Stay all night, wash your feet, and you can rise up early and go on your way." They said, "No, but we will stay in the street all night." He urged them greatly, and they came in with him and entered into his house. He made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. But before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, surrounded the house, both young and old, all the people from every quarter. They called to Lot and said to him, "Where are the men who came in to you this night? Bring them out to us, that we may have sex with them." Lot went out to them through the door and shut the door after himself. He said, "Please, my brothers, don't act so wickedly. See, now I have 2 virgin daughters. Please, let me bring them out to you. You may do to them what seems good to you. Only don't do anything to these men, because they have come under the shadow of my roof." They said, "Stand back." And then they said, "This one fellow came in to live as a foreigner, and he appoints himself a judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them." They pressed hard on the man Lot and came near to break the door. But the men reached out their hand and brought Lot into the house and shut the door. They struck the men who were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. The men said to Lot, "Do you have anybody else here, sons-in-law, your sons, your daughters, and whomever you have in the city, bring them out of the place, for we will destroy this place, because the outcry against them has grown so great before Yahweh that Yahweh has sent us to destroy it." Lot went out and spoke to his son-in-laws, who were pledged to marry his daughters, and said, "Get up, get out of this place, for Yahweh will destroy the city." But he seemed to his son-in-laws to be joking. When the morning came, then the angels hurried Lot, saying, "Get up, take your wife and your 2 daughters, who are here in the city, lest you be consumed in the iniquity of the city." But he lingered, and the men grabbed his hand and his wife's hand and his 2 daughters' hands, Yahweh being merciful to him, and they took him out and set him outside of the city. It came to pass, when they had taken them out, that he said, "Escape for your life. Don't look behind you, and don't stay anywhere in the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be consumed." Lot said to them, "Oh, not so, my lord. See now, your servant has found favor in your sight, and you have magnified your loving kindness, which you have shown me in saving my life. I cannot escape to the mountain, lest evil overtake me and I die. See now, this city is near to flee to, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape there. Isn't it a little one? And my soul will live." He said to him, "Behold, I have granted your request concerning this thing also, that I will not overthrow the city of which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, for I can't do anything until you get there." Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar, which means little. The sun had risen on the earth when Lot came to Zoar. Then Yahweh rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire from Yahweh out of the sky. He overthrew those cities, all the plain, all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew on the ground. But Lot's wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. Abraham went up early in the morning to the place where he had stood before Yahweh. He looked towards Sodom and Gomorrah and towards all the land of the plain, and saw that the smoke of the land went up as the smoke of a furnace. When God destroyed the cities of the plain, God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the middle of the overflow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot lived. Lot went up out of Zoar and lived in the mountain, and his 2 daughters with him, for he was afraid to live in Zoar. He lived in a cave with his 2 daughters. The firstborn said to the younger, "Our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in to us in the way of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve our father's family line." They made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father. He did not know when she lay down, nor when she arose. It came to pass on the next day that the firstborn said to the younger, "Behold, I lay last night with my father. Let's make him drink wine again tonight. You go in and lie with him, that we may preserve our father's family line." They made their father drink wine that night also. The younger went and lay with him. He didn't know when she laid down, nor when she got up. Thus both Lot's daughters were with child by their father. The firstborn bore a son, and named him Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. The younger also bore a son, and called his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the children of Ammon to this day. There has been an outfit change because I lost some footage. Pickups. Have I mentioned that I love these stories? I love these stories. As little tales go, this one is loaded like a Nick Tahoe's garbage plate. Our old friend Abe is haggling with God for mercy. Angels are on a scorched earth mission. Nephew Lot is doing his best and still royally mucking it up. And God's being all, I never said I wouldn't use fire. This baby's got it all. Violence, magic, heroes, anti-heroes, cities get blown up, rapid mineralization, PTSD, alcohol, and incest. It's great! Before we go any further, I have some channel recommendations for you. The first one is Dark Matter 2525. His cartoons are very funny, and he's having a really rough time right now and could really use your support through watching, liking, sharing, commenting on his videos. His channel is not safe for work. Alright, second one is Skepticus. I am highly amused, and Adam has great taste in shirts. So, shout out to Adam of the wonderful shirts. Do not play the drinking games, you will end up in the hospital. He is way better at Bible reading than I am, and I'm just being honest here on that. The next one is Former Fundy. This is a new / rebooted channel. She was on a couple years ago, now she's back. And this is a former Christian fundamentalist turned Fundy Snark channel with a person who has a theology degree, so she actually knows what she's talking about. I like her. If you like informer, slower paced videos, this is a good choice. And she has the cutest gray tabby cat ever. I just want to squish her key. The last channel recommendation is a Christian channel. This is Bible Nerd Ministries. Her name is Faith, and she has loads of videos on Bible as literature, how to follow themes, Bible journaling, Bible study, etc. She is a seminary graduate and very into hermeneutics. This is a vocabulary word. If you want to understand how pastors break down the Bible and reassemble it into sermons, she has got you covered. So here's your bonus definition. Hermeneutics is the branch of knowledge that deals with interpretation, especially of the Bible or literary texts. We have a cat visiting us today. This is Bandit. You do not need to be back there. Now, let's get to the really boring stuff. History of the text. And I have my, yes, I got my hands full. Hi, how are you? What you doing? Thank you. When was it written? Sometime between 950 and 650 BCE. That was a long time ago, especially in kitty years. Who wrote it? The J source, the Yahweh source, is commonly considered to be the author of almost the entirety of that text, with a little insert from the priestly source in chapter 19, verse 29. Where was it written? In the kingdom of Judah. Were there edits? Oh, baby, were there ever edits. Let's all thank the redactors in the post-exilic period for their fantastic little narrative of chaos and destruction. Moving on to literary analysis. There are 5 distinct scenes, and so I've broken it down that way. Scene 1, we have Yahweh and Abraham in speaking roles, and then the 2 men / angels as they're walking away. And that takes place on a hill overlooking the plains of the Jordan and the city of Sodom. In scene 2, in the city of Sodom, we have Lot and the 2 angels and the men of the city speaking. And then there's Lot's wife, Lot's 2 daughters, and Lot's sons-in-law, who presumably speak because they laugh, but it doesn't have the quotation marks. So, and then in scene 3, we have the 2 angels and Lot in speaking roles, Lot's wife and Lot's 2 daughters on the road between Sodom and the city of Zoar. In scene 4, Abraham is alone. He's overlooking on that same hill where he spoke to God, and he sees the smoke rising up from the destroyed city bandit. And then in scene 5, we have Lot, his 2 daughters, baby Moab, and baby Ben-Ami. And they are in Lot's wine cave, and that is not entirely a joke. That's actually what it's called. The story is told in the 3rd person omniscient, with private insight into God's thoughts and Lot's emotions. It's all fear. Lot only feels fear. While never explicitly stated, we get a sense of how the other characters are feeling by what they say. So the language is becoming more expressive. Literary devices. The main themes are hospitality versus inhospitality, divine retribution, and imperfection. This part of the story has a dual plot line bouncing between God and Abraham, and then the angels and Lot's family. There is an etiology of Lot's wife equals the pillars of salt beside the Dead Sea. It's a great story for tour guides to tell, but should not be taken literally. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. We have a role reversal and poetic justice between Lot and his 2 virgin daughters, where he offers them as potential gang rape victims, and then they later facilitate his sexual assault via alcohol. There's also an element of sperm stealing involved in that, which is another theme that we'll revisit later on in the Bible. So more on that one later too. Role reversal occurs when 2 characters' relationship dynamics are fundamentally inverted, and demonstrate a shift in power or help the reader to explore new perspective. Poetic justice is a literary device where virtue is ultimately rewarded and vice is fittingly punished. The punishment reflects the nature of the transgression in an ironic or strangely appropriate way. Comparative mythology. Divine hospitality, or theoxenia, is a recurring theme where gods in disguise test the virtue of mortals through ritualized guest friendship. Those who show generosity and kindness are rewarded, while those who are inhospitable face dire punishment. The closest parallel to Sodom and Gomorrah is the Greek story of Baucis and Philemon. Zeus and Hermes disguise themselves as travelers and visit all the wealthy homes in a town in Phrygia. All doors are closed to them except for one, that of an elderly and impoverished couple, Baucis and Philemon. They have very little, but they share their meager stew and wine with their guests, and in some versions she offers to cook the goose once they... When the wine does not run out, the 2 become afraid, and the gods reveal themselves. The gods flood the town and the valley and transform the couple's cottage into a grand temple where they become the head priest and priestess. Zeus offers them whatever they wish as a reward, but again they are afraid, knowing that they need to beware of the gifts of the gods. So out of a great love for each other, they wish to die in the same moment, so one never has to grieve the loss of the other. Zeus grants this wish many years later, transforming them into entwined oak and linden trees outside of their temple. Other stories of divine hospitality are more direct and personal. When Odin visits King Garioth, the king takes the disguised god prisoner and tortures him. Odin rewards the prince, who gives him water, and the wicked king falls on his own sword, opening the way for the kind prince to inherit the kingdom. In the story of Krishna and the poor widow, all she has to offer is a glass of milk, which Krishna rewards by telling her that her beloved cow will die soon, thereby releasing her from her last worldly attachment and allowing her to attain spiritual freedom. It's actually a little darker than that, but that's okay. The tale of Zeus and King Lycaon does not end well for the very evil king. A brief mention of a story about not looking back, the Arthurian legend or poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson, The Lady of Shalott. The Lady Elaine Astolat is cursed to never be able to look outside, so she uses a mirror to view the world out her window and weaves tapestries of it all day. One day she sees Sir Launcelot riding by, and half sick of shadows, she turns to watch him out the window. The mirror cracks, her tapestry flies apart, and she knows the curse is fulfilled and she's dying. She climbs into a boat, writes her name on it, and lets it float down the river to Camelot. When Lancelot sees her, he's like, "Well, she was pretty, too bad she's dead." Lancelot's kind of a jerk. Conflicts, contradictions, and controversies. A quick note here. 2 Jewish traditions do give the women in this story names. Lot's wife is Edith, which means choice or elite, sometimes Udu or Edith. I'm going to call her Edith. His daughters are Peltit and Selet, or there's another set of names, Guth and Asa. And this is why sometimes Lot has either 2 or 4 daughters, because of the competing traditions. This section is also a bit more of a jumble for brevity's sake. So much fun to do with a cat. Okay, let's try that without a cat. Conflicting or confusing information within the text. Lot's sons-in-law. Were they with the men of Sodom threatening Lot and company or not? This comes down to interpretation or translation. In some translations of chapter 19, verse 14, it sounds like Lot is literally wading through the blinded men and then telling his sons-in-law to get up and get out. And in others, it sounds like he goes to their homes and tells them to leave, but they think he's joking because they have no idea what just happened outside of his door. If it's the first interpretation, then he has terrible taste in in-laws, which would call his righteousness into question, but that does fit with his character. And if it's the second, this is a contradiction with chapter 19, verse 4, where all the men of Sodom obviously doesn't mean all. And we end up with God potentially violating his promise to Abraham in 1832. We'll talk about that more later. There is also disagreement if these were already his sons-in-law married to other daughters, because remember, sometimes there's 2 and sometimes there's 4, or if they were the fiancés of the 2 virgin daughters that he just offered as a substitute victims to the angry mob. I want to note that I'm being rather sloppy with my sources here, but you can just toggle through like Bible Gateway for different translations and you'll see what I'm talking about, why it's so confusing. Why did Lot's daughters think that they were alone in the world when they'd just gone to Zoar, the little city, before moving to the Grota del Vino? The answer is no one bothers to answer this question. Like, what? But here's the deflection that we get. Depending on your translation and denomination and what extra biblical stories you pay attention to, Lot's daughters are either the fruit of his bad judgment or righteous but operating under mistaken but good intentions, and they're judged by their good intentions, not by their actions. Before we go any farther, I'm going to give you a big, huge content warning because, oh my God. But this is the Bible. What did you expect? On the more positive take of things, the sisters have maintained their virginity in Sodom, which is a minor miracle right there. They followed the angel's instructions. They've stuck with their father through this really traumatic event, and they're upholding their duty as the only surviving women that they know of in the world to continue their species. They also make their father insensible so as not to cause him to sin. Don't blame me for that one. The firstborn, Peltit or Guth, whichever one you want to call her, who came up with the idea of making double daddy babies, is the ancestor of King David through Ruth. The more favorable view of the sisters has to do with messianic prophecy, meaning that they're the ancestors of Ruth, David, Jesse, Jesus, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going to get into that here because that's New Testament stuff. We're not going to worry about it. Now on to the darker end of things, there are 2 traditions. The more common one today puts most of the onus on the daughters, saying that they had been taken by the sins of Sodom and didn't know or care what they were doing was wrong. It ascribes incestuous lust where the text does not claim that. We must understand that their duty and their worth as women in their society was to produce children. This was not about sexual gratification. While this salacious interpretation makes for a good jab at the Moabites and the Ammonites, I don't think that it's biblically supported. The next one is also quite dark, as if this tale needs more dark shit, and claims that Lot was not so drunk after all, and was either a willing participant or the aggressor in this incest situation. This storyline was incredibly popular from the Renaissance through the Enlightenment era in art, as we see here. In this version, both Lot and his daughters are heavily influenced by the sin of Sodom. Again, I don't think the biblical text supports this interpretation at all. It does make later conflicts with Moab easier to justify, but that's a much more modern way of storytelling than what is offered in the Bible. I think it's similar to the Canaan castrated Noah storylines. It's just an extra horror and gore that people have layered over the top of the text. I will say that this one is the most realistic scenario, and if we're talking real-world statistics, the most likely to have happened. What did Gomorrah do? It's just like rubber stamped on this, just like ditto, right? And there were going to be 5 cities that were to be destroyed. Anyway, let's talk about it. So I'm very frustrated by this. The Bible doesn't even bother to name the other nuked towns in chapter 19, verse 29. By the way, they were Admah, Zeboam, and supposedly Zoar was supposed to get nuked, which was spared by Lot's request. When we look at this story without the tri-omni-God overlay that comes later in the Hellenistic period, I want you to remember that this is a pre-exilic writing. This is yet another example of corporeal, council of gods, anthropomorphized, magic man Yahweh breaking his promise to Abraham. He promised that if there were 10 righteous people, he would not torch that city. But did the angels look? No. They got invited to dinner after having a fantastic picnic and lunch. And then there was a scuffle with the men of the city, which the sons-in-law may or may not have been involved with. That's potentially 8 people if they were busy milking goats. Like, you've got to be kidding me. They couldn't find 2 more righteous people. The 2 angels holed up in Lot's house, and then they skedaddled on out of there in the morning before leveling the place. So they didn't even bother to look. They just went to dinner with the first man that they met. Who were the people who were crying out? Were some of the residents of Sodom being victimized? Kind of seems like there would be, right? Or was it only travelers who were assaulted? Little unlikely when you have that kind of bad behavior going on. No talking with the women, no saving the children, no rescuing the slaves, no visits to other cities, or they didn't go out to the plains and be like, hey, by the way, you might want to graze the critters somewhere way over there for a few days to the herdsmen in the valley. Like nothing was said. They were just like, no, burn it all. The angels didn't even go to Gomorrah. There could have been 50 righteous people there. But here God goes, doing the genocide thing again. I guess it's okay because he's using fire instead of water this time, right? He's not technically breaking his word. The story is about being righteous, not good. Legalism without ethics is bad, folks. And this is legalism without ethics. Let's go back to the sons-in-law and pour some reality on this tale. So we have Pops stopping by in the middle of the night, babbling about fire from the sky and God's about to nuke the place. This would be a joke, right? They didn't have faith in God. Sweetheart, if your aging father-in-law knocked on your door at 2 o'clock in the morning and started yelling about the sky is falling, you'd either think he was joking or that it's time to call the assisted living place. They had every reason to think that this was a prank. In my opinion, Zeus and Hermes did a much better job of checking the facts in Phrygia. They, at least, went from door to door. All right, our next category is conflicting information within religion and or society. What is wicked in Sodom? Let's start with some definitions and go from there, because I do love me some definitions on this. Wicked is evil or morally wrong, intended to or capable of harming someone or something. Homosexual is sexually or romantically attracted to people of one's own sex. Homo meaning same. Sexual assault is when someone either touches another person in a sexual manner without consent or makes another person touch them in a sexual manner without consent. Please don't do that. Rape is penetration, no matter how slight, of the V or A, or with any body part or object, or oral penetration by a sex organ of another person without consent of the victim. Gang rape is the rape of one person by a group of other people. Hospitality is the friendly and generous reception and entertainment of guests, visitors, or strangers. Inhospitable of a person is unfriendly and unwelcoming towards others. So, were Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed because of loving, consensual, committed relationships between male partners? No. Was Sodom firebombed because Fred and Ted hooked up for some slippery funsies on a Friday night? Was Sodom laid waste by fiery sulfur because the men of Sodom politely asked the angels on a dinner date with dancing because they thought they were cute? No. Sodom was destroyed because a bunch of violent, angry, entitled, power-hungry dudes wanted to gang rape, shame, and beat their angelic visitors instead of being good hosts. The sexual predators of Sodom did not understand the importance of the tourism industry, so they got nuked. The whole point of the last few chapters was to highlight the difference between being a good host and being inhospitable jerks. Set in the time period, a traveler stumbling into an inhospitable settlement could be deadly. That behavior is not good for society, hence it is wicked. In my opinion, our divine dudes could have stopped at blinding the bad guys. They didn't need to torch the whole place. Try a little social reform, maybe play some training videos about consent, point out the economic benefits of a healthy trade network. So very many options before jumping right to flaming tephra and pyroclastic flows. Just saying. Lot offers his daughters to be raped. Holy sheep and goats here, Batman. What the heck is going on? To understand this, we need a little bit of context. Har har. On the rules of hospitality in Canaan at this time. There was a tradition of extending protection and provision to strangers. This was considered a sacred duty, especially in the desert where travelers were vulnerable. In the tale, Sodom was on a fertile plain, and they didn't feel the need to be hospitable. When the divine visitors show up, Abraham and Lot both offer an insistent invitation to their guests. They are both humble hosts. They both provide food, shelter, cleanliness, and rest. When Lot's guests are threatened, he tries to defuse the situation by reminding the men of Sodom about the rules of hospitality and his obligation to protect his guests. Where a modern reader will say he fails is when he offers his daughters to be raped and potentially killed by the mob. By the hierarchy of hospitality, his daughters were below the male guests, so Lot maintains his righteousness here in following the rules. However, to be virtuous, Lot should have protected everyone in his household, family, and guests. This is not clear in the text, though it would have been clear to the 8th century audience. So while he did the correct thing, he did not do the good thing. Again, we are left to contend with the English text as is in the various translations. Did Lot move to Sodom to sin? You just want to sin. As in other places, the text does not say this. I'm not a religious person. I don't feel obligated to fill in with extra spiritual motives. I do want to cover them so that we get a full picture of the cultural story, which is bigger than what's in the Bible itself. So, did Lot just want to sin? Some traditions say yes. Some claim that the sin of Sodom bothered Lot. That's stated in the New Testament. Some say that he was trying to be good, but not hard enough. What we can get from the text in Genesis is that Lot thought that the Jordan Valley looked good for his livestock. This was essentially a good financial move. He got taken as a POW and rescued, and then settled in Sodom proper and built a life there. Of course, he was reluctant to leave his nice, fortified stone house. Being a refugee with nothing can be a death sentence even today. Again, I don't think we have the evidence to say Lot just wanted to sin. I think we have a person making reasonable human decisions over many years and doing his best to get along after bad things happen. Is he perfect? Absolutely not. He screws up big time. Most of the people in these stories do. This is not an excuse for anyone to offer their daughters up for being gang raped to an angry mob. Oh my God. Controversies. All right, I have already addressed or lightly addressed the issue of homosexuality in this particular chapter of the Bible. This is often used to discriminate against gay marriage or bisexual relationships or anything other than one man and one woman, okay? This is not what this was about. This was about these people being selfish and inhospitable and violent towards visitors, okay? If you're thinking that it's about the penetrative act, that was done to humiliate travelers. That was not done because they wanted a committed, loving relationship with these people. That's clearly not what's going on here. So this is a gross misinterpretation of what the story says. You're missing the point of the story. Oh my God. So we're going to leave that. And just, it's not about gay marriage, okay? It's just not. Anyway, next up. Why is Yahweh giving PTSD to all of his patriarchs all the time? Let's take a step back and look at the good and bad from Lot's life. So here's the good. He's raised by his grandfather. He does well with his uncle. He finds a great place to live, able to rebuild his life, and he raises a family. He seems to do pretty well. Here's the bad. His dad dies when he's young, at a time when people have very long lives. He is uprooted from his larger family group twice as a child, and he's taken a prisoner in a war. His new community turns on him because they want some divine nookie, and he panics and says some bad things. And then the place goes up in flames, leaving him standing outside with nothing. His wife gets mineralized, and he has to live in a cave because he can't cope with the fear of living in a city. And then his daughters SA him while he's in a drunken stupor. Some of this is just shit happens, but like, dude. I guess it's not as WTF as Abraham is about to experience, and definitely not as WTF as the flood was. So, moving on. Questions. Do you think the angels even tried to find 10 righteous people before torching the place? What do you think Sodom's sin was? Moreover, I want to know, if you went to church, what your church thought Sodom's sin was. Was Lot righteous? Was Lot good? Were you ever taught the difference between righteous and good in a religious setting? Because I wasn't. How do you think Abraham felt when he saw the cities on fire? Which storyline do you prefer for Lot's daughters? What did I miss? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me on the Secular Scriptures for Hellfire and Brimstone, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. You can share it if you want. I hope you'll come back next time when we rejoin Abraham and Sarah in Genesis 20 to 21 for some of their old tricks and a little laughter.